A great key lime pie is not that hard to make. Today, I'll show you my 7 keys to unlocking the perfect key lime pie.
Yay!
There are 3 key components to a great key lime pie: the crust, the filling, and the topping. See the description for a full list of ingredients for each component. Are you ready? Because the kitchen is now open. Come on in. Let's cook up something good. My first task is to get my limes ready, and you'll see why that's important a little later on. Then I can make and bake my crust. But before I do any of that, I set my oven to 375 degrees so it's ready when I am.
Unless you're in Florida and can get authentic key limes, key number 1, always use regular Persian limes. These have more juice and better flavor than what passes for key limes in your local market. I take my freshly rinsed limes and zest them on the rasp side of my grater until I have 2 tablespoons. I turn my lime so I only get the zest and not the white pith underneath. To juice my limes, I use firm pressure to roll them on their sides and ends to release the juice before slicing them in half and squeezing them with a citrus squeezer until I've got 3/4 of a cup. For now, I set the zest and juice aside. For a delightfully sweet crust, key number 2, I add light brown sugar. I grind up 12 full-sized graham crackers in the food processor until they're a fine powder. Then I stir in 1/3 cup of brown sugar and follow that with 1 stick of melted salted butter and mix them together well until the texture is like moist beach sand. For a beautiful pie and that picture-perfect slice, key number 3, use a tart pan like this 10-inch by 2-inch one from Fat Daddy-O. You'll see why a little bit later. To build my crust, I start with the sides, adding the graham cracker mixture a bit at a time. I press the crust into the sides of the pan and continue adding and pressing until the sides are about a 1/4 inch thick. Then I go back to the top edge and press it down into the scallops of the pan for a strong and attractive crust. Next, I add the rest of the crumb mixture and press it into the bottom of the pan. Finally, I use a glass or small measuring cup to make sure my crust is firmly pressed all the way around and taking care to keep the same thickness. It can easily get too thick at the edge of the base, so be careful and take your time. When my crust is done and golden brown, I remove it and lower my oven to 350 degrees for my next step.
Okay, now it's time to make the filling and get this pie into the oven.
Into a large bowl, I add 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk, 1 cup of plain Greek yogurt, and 1 tablespoon of lime zest, reserving 1 tablespoon for later. I whisk these until combined and then add 3/4 cup of lime juice, a bit at a time until everything is well blended. Now I place my tart pan on a baking sheet, and here's key number 4. I pour my filling into my still warm crust. This is why I prepped my limes first. If I took the time now to zest and juice them, the crust could cool off too much and crack when I return it to the oven. I level out my filling with a spatula, and then back it goes to bake for 40 minutes at 350 degrees.
Here's my pie fresh from the oven. First, it needs to cool on the counter for 30 minutes and then for 3 hours in the refrigerator, so you're going to want to start early or maybe make it the day before. If you want to make your pie the day before, after it's cooled for 30 minutes on the counter, wrap it with foil and store it in the fridge overnight. The next steps are the same no matter when you make your pie, because now we're talking toppings.
Now for the topping, and key number 5. I start with a very well chilled glass or metal bowl and beaters to make key number 6, homemade whipping cream. I start with 2½ cups of very well chilled heavy cream and beat at medium-high until soft peaks start to form. Then I add 2½ tablespoons of sugar-free vanilla pudding mix and continue whipping at medium-high speed until medium peaks form. The pudding adds flavor and stability to my whipped cream so it doesn't fall flat before serving. To balance out the tartness of the limes, key number 7, I'm covering the entire pie with whipped cream. I use just enough to cover with a spatula and then pipe the rest using a zippered bag and a piping tip. This takes a little bit of practice, but it's really not difficult. Once the whole pie is covered, I build up the center more to create some additional height. Remember key number 3, and here's why you'll want to use that deep dish tart pan. It takes a little bit of patience, but the results are worth it. I center my pie on top of a tall, narrow bowl or 32-ounce can. By jiggling and using moderate pressure, the collar pops free and I lift the pie out. Using a large sharp knife, I find the edge of the bottom of the pan and carefully slip my knife between it and the crust, kind of like slipping a spatula between a pancake and a griddle. I gently turn the pie until it comes free and then slide out the bottom of the pan and the knife. Graham cracker crusts tend to be fragile, but this way is much easier on your crust than mangling it while you dig it out of a regular pie pan. You can garnish and slice your pie right where it sits, but I want to display mine on a cake pedestal. Using a super-sized spatula, I carefully lift my pie onto the plate. Finally, I take a thin slice of lime, cut it to the center, give it a little twist, and place it on top of my pie. Then I add some zest for color and an extra pop of flavor, and we're ready to serve.
You don't need key limes or super skills to make an incredible key lime pie. Just follow my 7 steps and your family will sprint to the table, because if you feed them this or this, they will come.